What's up guys? Welcome to my channel where we discuss the truly terrifying things that keep us up at night. Let's get into the video. So today's story kicks off 112 Ocean Avenue, Amityville. Now guys, let me tell you, this is one heck of a story, so strap yourselves in, get your coffee, your tea, your popcorn, whatever the hell you need, and let's get into it, because today we're not playing. November 13th, 1974. Ronnie DeFeo Jr., aka Butch, butchered his entire family. I mean, guys, it's hectic. He had 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and then of course his mom and dad, and he shot them all in their beds while they were asleep. Now, the strange thing about this is that nobody woke up from the gunshots. His whole family was asleep while he shot them all in the backs. They were all sleeping on their stomachs, which is also weird because, I mean, what family sleeps exactly the same way? But anyway, so they didn't wake up from the gunshots, and as if this isn't like weird enough, none of the neighbors heard the shots anyway. And when the police did some testing, I don't know what you call it, but they did testing or what the hell ever, and they found that the shotgun that Ronnie DeFeo used, it actually can be heard 3 to 4 blocks away. Now this is strange because, like I said, the neighbors didn't hear anything. The family was asleep while being murdered, and the only thing that was reported was the DeFeo family dog barking, and that was literally it. It was a quiet night. Nobody heard anything, nobody saw anything. The medical examiner said that none of the family members were placed that way. There was no drugs in their system to explain why they slept so deeply. And it's just, like I said, it's freaking weird, you guys. What's also strange about this is the fact that Mr. DeFeo Sr., he went to Canada a month before the murders, and he had religious statues made in Canada, and he had them placed around the house, like praying, like in front of the house. Now, I mean, this is weird. I feel like I have said weird a million times right now, but it's weird, right? Like, I feel like Mr. DeFeo Sr., I feel like he knew that something was up. And the thing is, like, if people say that Ronnie was a drug addict and he was a problem child, say the rumors are true and Ronnie was a drug addict and he was a problem child, I mean, wouldn't Mr. DeFeo just kick him out of the house and be like, go find your own way because you are scaring your family members, you're acting up? I mean, Ronnie was 23 at the time that he killed his family, so he was old enough for his parents to say, listen, get the hell out of my house. It's not like he was still a kid. He was the house was marked down quite a bit after the murders, of course, because of the history of the house. They need to disclose the history of the house, and you know, you get superstitious people for good reason. So they marked the house down to $80,000. Now this was actually a great price because, I mean, it was a huge ass house, guys. It was like 3 stories, I think it was 3 floors, and it had a heating swimming pool. It was on a river or whatever, and it had a boathouse also, massive yard, you know, the good area. The Lutzes, George and Kathy Lutz, they were newlyweds, and they came to take a look at the house, and Kathy said that this was the best house that she'd seen so far, and she immediately fell in love with the house. And I mean, it was a great price. It was over their budget, but I guess because it was such a great price, they were like, okay, well, I mean, you can't throw such a good bargain down the drain, you know? And they were a family of 5. It was their son Chris, another son Danny, and their daughter Missy, and then they had a black Labrador. And yeah, so this was like a year later when they decided to buy the house. Before moving in, they had a priest bless the house. The priest's name was Father Ray Pecoraro. Now he said that when he blessed the house, nothing was out of the ordinary, but when he came to the upstairs room on the, I think it was the 2nd floor. Now the Lutzes used this room as a sewing room, so from now on I will be referring to this room as the sewing room. So when he got to the sewing room, he blessed the room and everything, and then suddenly he heard a loud voice behind him saying, get out, like a deep voice, get out. And as if this wasn't enough to scare the pants off of him, he also felt a distinct slap in his face by an unseen force. So he told the Lutzes before they moved in, he told the Lutzes, don't use the sewing room, don't use that room. So apparently that's why they decided to make it a sewing room, so that it's not like a bedroom. You know? I mean, after hearing that, I wouldn't move in, but I guess they already paid for the house and everything, so I don't know. They decided they're brave enough, they're gonna move in. So George said that immediately after they moved in, weird stuff started happening. Within the first hour of moving in, the dog tried to get away from the house and he jumped over the fence. Now, the dog had a collar and a leash, and his leash was tied up. So the dog almost hung himself trying to get away from this house. He said that he would find himself waking up in the mornings around 3:15 a.m. Now, this was said to be the time that Ronnie DeFeo murdered his family. I don't know if at the time they knew that this was the time he murdered his family. I don't know if this was public information. And he also said that he started getting sick in this house and he lost a lot of weight. And not just him had bad experiences. His wife, Kathy, she actually said that she felt the presence of an older woman surrounding her, and that one day she looked in the mirror and she saw an older woman staring back at her. Also, their daughter Missy, she suddenly had an imaginary friend. And this imaginary friend wasn't there before they moved into the house. He came with the house. Now, she would say that Jody, the imaginary friend, he would appear to her as a little boy or a pig. Okay, I found a couple of reports that said that the pig had red eyes, and I think apparently in the book the pig had red eyes. But I tried to focus on first-hand statements from the Lutzes, and I couldn't find any statements where they said that the pig had red eyes. But just to put it out there, there are reports that the pig had red eyes. So Jody told Missy that she's going to be very happy living there, and she's going to be living there with him forever. If I know a thing or two, I'm not saying that I do, but watched a lot of haunted movies. And if an imaginary friend or a spirit or anything that tells you you're going to be living there forever, that means you're going to die. You're going to be dead. You're not moving out of that house, you're dead. That's that. You're leaving that house in a body bag. So I guess that it didn't bother the parents, because I mean, she was a little girl, so it's not strange to have an imaginary friend. So George said that a couple of nights, like this happened often, that they would find the boathouse side door open, because like I said, he would wake up like in the middle of the night feeling restless, 3:13, whatever, feeling restless, and he would find the boathouse side door open. So one night he went down to investigate what's going on, not me, I will stay in bed, I will put the cover over my head. But he went down, he investigated, brave man. He came back up and he checked on his family members. Now, the two boys were asleep, his wife was asleep, everybody peaceful and all that. And then he got to Missy's room, and he said when he peered into Missy's room, he saw an adult-shaped figure roaming around in her room. Guys, run. Throw the holy water, set the house on fire, and run out of there. So he said that, of course, his wife was asleep. So who the hell could it be that's in Missy's room, He said that he started questioning his own senses and his own sanity, because, I mean, there was nothing there, yet he saw something. He also said one night they had friends over, and they heard footsteps and stuff moving on the second floor, and there was nobody on the second floor at the time. So they ended up telling their friends that, yeah, something weird is going on in the house, there's been a couple of occurrences, stuff happening, So one of their genius friends came up with the idea that they should bless the house themselves. So George said, well, they tried it. They just wanted to get rid of whatever was in the house and whatever was bothering them. He said that they would go around in the house and they would be like, whatever's in the house, I command you to leave, and open the window. And, because that's worked out well in the past. So he said that this didn't make it better, it just made it worse. So George said that one night him and Kathy was laying in bed, and they distinctly heard the front door slam shut. And he said that it was definitely the front door because the front door had a very distinct sound about it. They were laying in bed and they heard the front door slam shut. So once again, George, feeling brave, went down and went to go investigate. I guess also because you can't just put everything off as supernatural because somebody might be breaking in your house. When he got downstairs to the front door, the dog was laying like right next to the door. And he said that the dog didn't look like he was bothered or disturbed or anything. So if the front door did shut, the dog would have, of course, had a reaction to it. He had a ceramic lion that Kathy gave to him as a gift. And this ceramic lion started moving around by itself. Like, he said you'd be sitting and you won't, and like it would be here or whatever, and you won't be watching it and it would like move into like just an inch or two, you know. So nothing too strange. But then sometimes when they weren't there or like in the same room or whatever, the lion would move from room to room. So of course they were like, what the hell? And they decided to get rid of it. So they threw the lion out. And they said that the next morning the lion was back in its place. And they asked the kids, did you guys move the lion back inside? And the kids said no, they didn't touch it. So I mean, wow. Scary, guys, scary. So I guess they ended up not getting rid of the lion because what's the point? It's just coming back. Also one day, Kathy was cleaning or packing out or I don't know, whatever she was doing. And she saw that behind the bookcase there was a door or something. So George was somewhere else and Kathy called George and she asked him to come help her investigate this. But there was like a red room, a little room. They said you can sit like 2 people in there. So they also said that their dog wouldn't go near this room. Ooh, I choose you, Pikachu. Okay, so they also said that this room would smell like an open sewage pipe. Now there is an explanation for this, a supernatural explanation for this, being that demons leave off a bad smell. I believe it's sulfur, this smell. Now it smells like rotting meat or rotten eggs. It's a horrible smell. Yeah, like I said, the dog wouldn't go near it. Guys, listen to your dogs. They're not lying to you. They have no reason to lie to you. Listen to them, please. They also said that the sewing room where the priest got attacked, remember that room? So they also said that that room would constantly be filled with flies. They couldn't get rid of the flies. It was the middle of winter. There was no reason for there to be flies, and it was just located to this specific room. And there's another room in the house, but I'm not sure which room it was, that would also be filled with flies, and they couldn't get rid of it. They also said that the house would constantly be cold. There was cold spots everywhere the whole time. Cold spots, just couldn't get rid of it. They had the fireplace or the furnace or whatever they used back then. They had it running day in and day out. I guess they didn't have AC back in the day. But they had the fireplace going around the clock. The fire was burning. House couldn't get warm. They also said that their toilets would turn pitch black. I mean, pitch black. And they said that their china would do this as well, just turn black. Just randomly. So that was strange, but like I said, this family had a lot of warnings. But they also said that they would wake in the mornings and they would find like green gelatinous spots on the carpet, and they hadn't spilled anything, so there was no explanation for the stains on the carpet, you know. I know that in the book and the movie, apparently, the gelatinous spots would be dripping out of the keyholes and would be oozing from the walls. Like I said, you guys, I focused on first-hand statements because I don't want to get reality confused with like Hollywood or books or whatever. So I went with first-hand statements, interviews, stuff like that. Just like I said, to try and not confuse you on what is the truth and what is not the truth. Because, I don't know, There's too many stories surrounding this house. There's too many like tales that's been added to it. You know, like when you play telephone, it comes out entirely mangled at the end because people like attention, and the more stuff they can make up, the more attention they can get, you know. So the night prior to the last night in the house, George said this was already quite terrifying. They heard like agonizing, terrible screams in the house. The day before they moved out, their last night in the house. George said that he was already kind of creeped out because earlier that day, Kathy turned into an older woman right before his eyes, like a 90-year-old woman, like right in front of his eyes, and she had scratches on his stomach. So that was freaky already. So then when nightfall came, things got worse. There was a storm outside that only they inside the house could hear. I don't know what this means, but this is what he said. He said there was a storm outside that only us in the house could hear. He said that the wind was raging, but luckily the lights stayed on. Thank God. Really. Imagine, haunted house, storm outside, lights go off. Run. George decided to bring the dog like into the house, to the bedroom. He said that he tied him up to the door in their bedroom because he was just freaking out because of the storm. Because, I don't know, guys, if you have dogs, some dogs freak out for storms. I know mine do. So he brought the dog inside so that he can just chill out. And I guess he tied him up so that he doesn't run around messing anything up. Then they eventually went to sleep. And he said that during the night, he awoke to find Kathy levitating 3 to 4 inches above the bed. So he saw her slipping away from him, and he pulled onto her and he grabbed her and pulled her back to bed. He went back to sleep, but I guess at this time there was nothing they hadn't seen yet. It was just another day at the rodeo, another day in the Amityville house, nothing to see here. So George said when he awoke again, he found himself sitting up straight in the bed, and he was moaning and wailing, whilst at the same time saying, "It's in Chris's room." So he was doing like unnatural things. I mean, how do you moan and wail and at the same time speak? It's impossible unless made possible by an unseen force. So the force is with them. I'm such a geek. Then he heard the boys' beds like bouncing up and down on the ceiling. Then the dog started walking around in circles, throwing up. And he said that he tried to get up to help the boys, and he tried to get up to help the dog, but he was immobilized. He couldn't move. He was like stuck. I don't know if something was pushing him down or whatever, but he was stuck. He couldn't move. And he, of course, felt like he was useless. He couldn't do anything to help his family. He couldn't do anything to help his dog. Everything was going crazy, and he was a sitting duck. He couldn't do anything, you know? I mean, imagine that. That's horrible, guys. So terrifying. So he said that the next morning when they all woke up and they looked at each other, they were terrified. And I guess this was when they knew they had to leave. So in the early mornings of January 14th, 1976, the Lutzes fled their house with not taking much. George said that when they left the house, they didn't really think that it was going to be forever, but when they actually realized like the crazy shit that went on there, they didn't ever go back. So they apparently took 3 changes of clothes each, and that was that. They didn't take any belongings, any valuables, nothing. And I think after consulting with a priest or I don't know, somebody who knows about this stuff, they actually told them that they shouldn't take anything out of the house that they don't already have, because it could be that the whatever's in the house latched onto that. After George and Kathy left the house, they went with the kids to Kathy's mom's house, and when they walked in the door, both George and Kathy started levitating. So they had to undergo exorcisms to get rid of this because I guess the evil entities, whatever, latched onto them. They actually only lived in the house for 28 days. So that's actually sad. They packed out everything, thought they were going to be happy in this house, and then weird shit started happening, so they had to leave their house. Only 28 days. I mean, guys, I've moved a couple of times in my life, and it's hard work. It's so much hard work. So I can't imagine just moving and staying somewhere for 28 days and then having to leave again. Too much hard work, and I am a lazy bitch, so there's no way. So after they moved out, they made contact with William Weber. Now, William Weber was Ronnie DeFeo's lawyer. Attorney, lawyer, defense lawyer, whatever you want to call him. He was DeFeo's lawyer. So they made contact with him apparently because they wanted to help Ronnie DeFeo get some psychiatric help. The reason for George and Kathy wanting to get Ronnie some psychiatric help was because he actually testified in court saying that he heard voices the night of the murders. He was sitting watching TV and he heard the voices of his family members in the other room conspiring against him. Now this of course didn't happen because everybody was asleep, but they also say that he was on a ginormous LSD trip. I don't know, but he said that he heard voices and that he saw a hooded figure with black hands handing him the shotgun he used to murder his entire family. Now, of course, because of these claims, William Weber, of course, immediately went for the insanity plea. They actually found that there was no reason for Ronnie DeFeo to hear voices. He wasn't schizophrenic or anything that could explain him hearing the voices. So they said that he wasn't 100% sane. He knew that he murdered his family. He knew what he was doing, but he just didn't think that it was wrong. According to them, there was nothing wrong with him. So, of course, because the psychiatrist said so, because they know everything, Ronnie didn't hear voices. So he was sentenced to a 6-term he was sentenced to 6 terms life sentences. I don't know how to express that. Okay, so he got he got a 6-term life sentence. So it said that William didn't ask Ronnie as much money to defend him in court as he normally would, because apparently he said that he will be making enough money from the publicity that's going to come from this case. Because I mean, of course, it's a horrific thing. It's like serial killer in overdrive. So he knew that a lot of people are going to show interest in this case. He was already actually looking into book deals. So when the Lutzes actually contacted him, this guy started seeing dollar bills. He was like, yes, I'm making my money right here. But now add the fact that there's supernatural activity going into this house. This guy was thinking book deals and movie deals, and like I said, he was just seeing that money. He was just seeing dollars. He set up a press conference with George and Kathy Lutz to tell all the cameras what you experienced, you know? Like a lot of things that I read, a lot of reports that I read, Kathy and George Lutz were very soft-spoken in the beginning, and apparently they didn't from the start claim that there was supernatural activity going on. George just said that a force bigger than themselves drove them out of the house. Apparently after this press conference, they went with William Weber and they had a couple of bottles of wine. And they started talking about Ronnie's case and what happened to them in the house. And George Weber said, this turned into a creative brainstorming idea about books and movies that could be made from this story, you know. Like I said, dollar bills. This guy was just concerned about the money and the publicity. But he said that the Lutzes, they actually got all their ideas for the book from his crime scene photos, For instance, the photo of the fingerprinting dust on the doorknobs. So he said that they looked at this photo and they looked at each other and they said, "That's the green gelatin." So he said that basically that's where they got the idea for the green slime, because the fingerprinting dust had a greenish tint to it. So that's where they got the idea for the green gelatin. Now, it's said that in the book and in the movie, the green gelatin would be dripping from the doorknobs and it would be oozing from the walls. Whereas the statements from the Lutzes, they actually just said that there would be green gelatin on the carpet. So I'm not going to say that it's untrue that they did over dramatize some things. I don't know, guys. Money makes the world go round. He also said that their claims about the room being filled with flies constantly, this also came from his crime scene photos from when the corpses were still in the house and the flies surrounding them. So he said that these claims were also based on his crime scene photos. The Lutzes said that a couple of days after this conversation took place, William Weber sent over an already done contract about a book deal. And apparently in this contract it stated that Ronnie DeFeo would be getting a cut percentage of the money for his story and his involvement in the story. So they said that when George read this, he immediately said that he is not going to go through with it, because he said that it felt like paying Ronnie for the murders that he committed. And apparently they never contacted William Weber again. They broke off all contact with him immediately. I'm guessing they never even gave him an answer, because like William said, he said that they just disappeared off the face of the earth. Like, they were there the 1 second and they were gone the next. So I'm guessing that they never really gave him an answer. Is there makeup on my... Oh my gosh. That might be problematic, but let's just pretend that we're not seeing it. If you're seeing it, just avert your eyes. Look into my eyes. They moved actually to California not too long after. So Laura DiDio contacted them. And she wanted to do a story on the house. So they gathered psychics and mediums and supernatural investigations and supernatural investigators and all these lovely people to come and check out like the house. Laura DiDio said that George wouldn't go step over the property line. However, Ed Warren actually stated that George Lutz met them 3 blocks over at a diner to give them the key, and that he said that he never wants to go near that place again. So I don't know which statement is true and which statement is false, but the fact at hand is, however, that George didn't want to go near the property. According to Lorraine Warren, Ed Warren's wife, if you're not familiar with the Warrens, she is a psychic or a medium. I don't really know if she's labeled herself, but she can see into the past, into the future, and she can sense evil and supernatural spirits and everything, all that lovely stuff that you don't want to be cursed with, you know. So she said that as soon as she walked into the house, she could immediately sense that whatever was in the house was more than just human spirits. So it wasn't just the DeFeo family trapped in this house. There was more than that, something evil. And she also said that she immediately felt a great depression washing over her, probably because of what happened in this house. Laura DiDio said that she didn't really feel anything strange. She just saw the reaction of the people around her, like the reactions of the psychics and the mediums and all that. She just saw the reactions, but she didn't feel anything. However, Steve, the cameraman, he actually only got as far as the 2nd floor when he started getting stabbing chest pains. And it was said that he actually had to go outside and take a break because it was too much for him. And I mean, I guess he didn't have any reason to fake it, because they were just there reporting on the story. So if they say it's a hoax, if they say it's true, either way their stories are going to get out there. It's not like they're making extra residual money off of it. Lorraine also peered into the one room and she said that she saw bodies lined up covered with white sheets. Now, apparently this is the room where they put all the victims before taking them out to the morgue. And she said that when she got to the 2nd floor, I'm not sure, I think it was the 2nd floor or the 3rd floor, where the sewing room was. When she got to this room, She said, and I quote, "I hope this is as close to hell as I will ever get." They also set up tripods with cameras that would take automatic pictures. I think it was, if I understand it correctly, the cameras was tied to a heat sensor, so if the temperature would drop, the camera would automatically take a picture. So it won't take picture of people, it will only take pictures if it starts to get too cold in this certain place where it's set up. So on the second floor landing, they caught a picture of a little boy peering out of Missy's room. Now, this is strange because there was no kids in the house at the time of the pictures being taken, and at the time of the supernatural slumber party, as they call it, there was no kids in the house. So for them to catch a little boy on a picture, I mean, like I said, no kids. I mean, where did it come from? When the picture was found, they compared it to one of the DeFeo boys, the youngest DeFeo boy who was shot and killed in the house, and they found a great resemblance between this little boy and the DeFeo boy. Also, what's really creepy is that George showed this picture to Missy, and he asked Missy, "Do you know who this is?" And Missy said to him, "Yes, that's Jody. Remember? Jody? The imaginary friend?" Yeah, he wasn't that imaginary after all. A lot of people that's debunking this, they actually fail to mention the picture that was taken of this little boy. After the supernatural slumber party, sometime after that, the bank reclaimed the house and they auctioned off all the Lutz's possessions that was inside the house, and the clothes and food was donated to the Salvation Army. Now, sometime after this, the Lutzes actually did the book with Jay Anson, and they didn't make that much money. People like to say that the Lutzes had this whole hoax in mind for the money, but they didn't really make that much money. They only made apparently $250,000 off of this book deal. Now, Jay Anson made millions off of this book deal because, I mean, it sold 6 million copies. It was a bestseller. So apparently also the Lutzes never signed a contract with Jay Anson for this book, which means that when it came around to shooting the movie, they didn't get any money for the movie. And the movie was also highly over dramatized. And Jay Anson got money for the movie, but the Lutzes did not. The reason that I believe the Lutzes didn't get any money for this movie is because they sued the movie, the movie makers. They sued them for this movie because it gave them a bad reputation. Because, like I said, everything was over dramatized. I mean, I get it. They want the movie to sell and all that. A lot of people got the movie confused with reality, and they badmouthed the Lutzes mostly because of this. And if it was premeditated, this whole thing where they claimed the house was haunted and it was premeditated, I believe that they would have been smart enough to sign a contract so that they get their money's worth out of it, you know. They probably did over dramatic. I'm so sorry, my freaking neck is itchy as hell. I think it's this label. But anyway, so yes, a couple of things in the book was also over dramatized. I believe that a couple of things was over dramatized in the book. I don't know, I can't say, I'm not them. But if they did over dramatize it, I'm not going to blame them because they lost everything from this whole ordeal that they went through. They lost everything. They lost their possessions, everything. So for them to over dramatize a couple of things to make the book a bestseller and hope that they will get enough money out of it, I mean, I'm not going to blame them for that. I know a lot of people do, but I'm not gonna. I will, however, say that yes, a couple of things probably aren't true, but I will also go ahead and say that yes, I believe that there was definitely supernatural activity in that house. It might not be as bad as it was depicted in the book and in the movie, but I believe that there was definitely something going on there. I mean, for people to just pick up and leave after 28 days of living in a house, losing their money that they put down on the house, and they didn't have a lot of money. It's not like they were rich people who could just like throw away money left and right. And also, like I said, freaking hell, packing out all of your things and moving and just leaving everything there. And like there's like a couple of sentimental things probably also in their house. I mean, I know my house, I don't have a lot of valuables, but I have a couple of sentimental things, you know, like stuff that belonged to my grandmother or my mother or whatever that I don't want to lose. Also, what makes me also believe the Lutzes is that both George and Kathy Lutz went for lie detector tests and they passed their test. Yes, I know that a lot of people say that, yeah, but a lie detector test doesn't always work. But it has worked in the past with a couple of people. It has worked. You have to be a very, very, very trained liar, like a military grade trained liar, to be able to pass a polygraph test. Because my mom actually took a polygraph test because people stole from a job, so they had to get everybody got polygraph tests because of it. And my mom says they put this thing over your chest and they do your finger, your heartbeat and everything. And she says just having that on you alone makes you so nervous that of course your heart rate is going to like go up. So she said that it was very scary to do a polygraph test. That's why I believe that they were telling the truth, because they passed their polygraph tests. And apparently the guy who conducted their test was number 2 in the world. I don't know what that means, but what I guess it means that he knew his stuff. He knew what he was doing. He actually, according to Ed, I think it was Ed or it was George, but according to one of them, this guy that did their tests, he actually went back to reading his Bible after conducting the tests. And also they told George and Kathy from the start, they said, if you pass your test, we'll make it public. If you fail your test, we'll make it public. So they knew what they were getting themselves into. So for them to still go through with it, not knowing if they were going to pass or fail, I mean, I guess they had to be very confident in themselves that they were telling the truth. They did this test, I think, before or after the movie came out, but they did this like around that time. To get back to the movie and the dramatization, the screenwriter actually said, and I quote, I wasn't really concerned about whether or not it was a true story. It didn't matter to me. I had to create a reality of my own. So this just tells you, like, you can't really give the Lutzes backlash because of what happened in the movie, because like I said, he wasn't concerned about reality. The people apparently who moved into the house after the Lutzes, they took like videos or photos or whatever of the house and of the one window that apparently shattered in the movie. Now they said, look at this, the original window is still intact, so we guess the house wasn't left in shambles after all. The Lutzes never claimed that the house was left in shambles. The Lutzes never claimed that anything was out of place or that anything was broken. This was a dramatization from Hollywood. This was a Hollywood dramatization. So once again, the people are mixing up Hollywood with reality. I mean, come on, guys. We're not 5 years old. Everything that happens on TV is not the real thing, okay? George Lutz, he actually also said, and this actually got me, guys. This got me. He said, and I quote, this is a direct quote, George Lutz, okay? They weren't there. They didn't live it. They didn't experience it. And yet they will explain it to you. And that is really a disservice to everyone. And I agree. If you have never had a supernatural experience or anything like that, I mean, who are you to sit there and say that it's not right? That it's not real? I mean, yes, you do have the right to say that the book was over dramatized or that the movie was over dramatized and that this was not real, but to actually go and stamp all over this family and what they experienced, I mean, that's not right. I feel like that's very unfair. I don't know. I may be gullible because, I mean, I have been told in the past that I'm quite gullible, so maybe it's just me. Maybe there's just smarter people in the world and I'm just not one of them. But I don't know. I believe the Lutzes. I believe them. Because also I saw a couple of interviews with Chris and with Danny, the 2 boys of the house. And shame, guys, Danny, that guy, he's broken because, I mean, of the circumstances that he grew up in. I mean, think about it. You if you're a kid and you're say like there's monsters under the bed or there's a ghost, and your friend's just like, oh no, it's just a dream, don't worry about it. But they actually grew up knowing that things like this exist. So where's your childhood after that? You know, I don't know, guys. And Danny also said, how do you explain to somebody being thrown down a staircase as a kid and there's nothing there, you know? And Chris also said that like he had to go from school to school because he was bullied because of the movie and because of the books and everything. So he said that the kids would immediately recognize their names and be like, oh, you the Lutz family, and then they'd ask him questions about it, and if he answered, then they'd say, you're lying because that's not what happened in the movie. Okay, for the kids I understand it because they're freaking kids, but adults really, please grow up. For them to still claim that what happened in the house was real after all these years, they're adults now, they could have like gotten away from it. I mean, Chris actually changed his name because of the bullying. It never stopped. So he actually changed his name to Quarantino or something. But then after seeing all the new movies being made and all the freaking dramatizations slandering his family name, he was like, hell no, I'm coming out of hiding and I am going to fight this. And I stand behind him 100%. I'm sorry, but it's nobody's right to say that they didn't experience what they experienced because you weren't there. You can't say that. You weren't there, you know? Most of the people involved with this case are deceased. Kathy Lutz died August 17th, 2004. She died from emphysema. Like Lorraine actually said also that what's strange about this is that when Kathy died, the emphysema actually made her look older than she was. So she it caused rapid aging, and she said that this could like explain why Kathy kept seeing older women. The house was basically telling her how she was going to die. That's scary, guys. That's really scary. George Lutz died the 8th of May 2006. He died from heart disease, and a very scary, strange, I don't know what to call it, fact about this is that most men involved with the Amityville house died from heart disease. I mean, go look it up. Like, a lot of men involved with this house died from heart disease, and a lot of people involved with this house like died shortly after the movie or the book or something. People died that's involved with this house. Now, I don't know, call it a coincidence, but I think not. I don't know, guys. It's too much to be a coincidence. It's too much. Ronald DeFeo Jr., aka Butch, he died the 12th of March 2021, which was this year. So, yeah, he died still serving a 6-term life sentence. I don't know what jail he died in. I think he was 70 at the time of his death. So he basically spent his whole entire life in jail.